everyone take a seat. We are going to get started. All right, good evening. Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. This will start the first UPUA presidential candidate ticket debate. Just remember, this is a live event tonight. We are going to be streaming this online at the moment. To start off, I'm going to quickly go over the basic format of tonight's debate. What we're going to do is we're going to ask a question, and the candidates are going to have the opportunity to respond to the question. They will have 2 minutes for a response. Candidates will take turns with each question responding first. Also, each ticket will have 2 opportunities for a rebuttal. And we will get started in just a second.
How long are each?
Excuse me?
How long are each? The rebuttal and the...
Well, it would also be 2 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, and without further ado, we will get started. The first question is a very basic question. Please give a short description of your main platform goals. Remember, you only have 2 minutes to respond, and we'll start on the end with the ticket of Miller and Smith.
The overarching goal of our platform is to run a student-centered student government, and we have 3 tenets laid out for how we are going to accomplish that. The first one is we are very much for a not-too-secret student government. We feel the culture of the UPUA this year has been very backdoor and very internal, and we want to reverse that. We need to be a transparent, representative body in order to be an effective body that honestly represents 38,000 undergraduate students. So we intend to do that through publication of the legislation and activities of the Assembly, by holding public office hours, bringing the representatives to the students instead of expecting them to come to the 3rd floor. Another tenet of our campaign is to really reverse the direction of UPUA by creating student-centered student government, and we have various ways we want to do that. We want to focus on freshman engagement, issuing a student handbook published by the UPUA to every single freshman student coming in at FitCap. We want to change the FitCap program, revitalize freshman engagement program, Welcome Week, and we want to make sure that every single student is finding a niche in the university, and that the student government is effectively reaching out to them in their passions, in their pursuits, to bring them into the student government and their voice to the center of every action we take. And finally, we're very much for a university that recognizes and values diversity. We want to hold focus groups with the different diversity groups that exist around the campus. They're very active, they're very good at what they do, and we want to bring them and work with them to help them accomplish our goals, to help them advise us on our goals. We also intend to reach out to transfer students, international students, and adult learners, large populations of the undergraduate population that don't always get the recognition they really deserve and tend to get left out and marginalized, and we want to reach out to them and bring them in as well.
Okay, thank you. The next ticket will be Borsig and Pasega.
First off, good evening, and thank you for all coming out this evening. It's a true beginning of a testament of this election process, and you all come out and be a part of this election, which is actually the foundation of our platform. What we want to start creating is a dialogue with the student body. We're only as effective as our communication with the student body and the issues concerning every student at this campus and at this university. Seeing what has been going on throughout this year, one of the pillars of our platform this year is the idea and the issue of tuition. We completely understand the needs of the student body this year. And tuition is going to play a huge role in everyone's lives this year. And it's our goal to effectively address the issue by hoping to freeze any increase, not just in tuition, but in fees. Furthermore, Other issues are of academic concern, such as the drop add period, drop add +1 period. So students have a chance to really get together the schedule that is necessary for them to graduate and to better their education, the very reason we all come here. Also, which is a dual-pronged situation, is having tests scheduled outside of the designated class time.
30 seconds.
We feel it's a great issue for students in deterring them actually from being involved in student organizations. These are just some of the issues that we wish to communicate and create a dialogue with all the students.
Thank you. And the last ticket is Kieran's and Gupta.
It's just me tonight. Going to talk to you a little bit about my platform, my goals. When I talk tonight, I'm not going to talk to you about these ideas that I have. What I'm going to talk to you about is my experience this past year as being the student body president, as being the UPUA president, and how I can improve upon that for a better student body as a whole. There's been a lot of talk of different ideas, and I think that they're all great in their own way. But the chief idea that Hillary and I are trying to promote is the idea of the restoration of the student body. And we have some concrete ways in which we want to achieve that. First something that we've been working on this entire year, and we're very close to having it come to fruition, is the idea of free legal services. This is something you can concretely point to, and basically what it would be that you could actually have an attorney represent you in court. I've been working with the Dickinson School of Law since the beginning of August, working with the Office of Student Affairs, and basically what it would be is a setup of interns at Dickinson School of Law and a full-time attorney who could actually give you legal advice, but on top of that could actually represent you in a court case. Another, as far as something you can point to substantively, is the tenant-tenant and tenant-landlord mediation. We had that this year, we had it up and running, but really there was a lot of flaws with it and it hasn't been as successful as I would have liked. Realizing this with my past experience as being the current president, I've researched other institutions such as Ohio State and saw how they teamed up with the Department of Off-Campus Living. That's something we want to do. Another thing that I'm already in the process of doing, want to see come to fruition, is the Good Samaritan policy or medical amnesty. I currently have a working group of working with the IFC and hope to also work with Panhandle and UPUA Legal Affairs to make this reality. Outside of that, we're also
30 seconds.
Thank you. Outside of that, we're also trying to speak to every freshman. An ambitious goal, you might say, why speak to every freshman? Because part of restoring the student body is outreach. People can say, we're going to talk to all the students, we're going to do this. I will speak to every freshman next year. I'm going to go on the floor. Met today with the Vice President of Student Affairs and talked about how I wanted to do this, and this wasn't just something I'm talking about. And I will see to it that that comes to fruition, and he was on board with it, loved the idea. So that is something that we'll see in the next year. Hillary Gupta and I represent.
Time.
Thank you.
All right. It was nice to see that at least one person from the ticket. It was actually at the rally in the Rotunda today. The question here is, do you feel rally is an effective way to lobby for state operations? If yes, why? If no, what would you like to do differently? And we'll start with the ticket of Kieran's.
Rallies are a great starting point, but if it's just one rally, if it's just one meeting, that accomplishes nothing. With specific attention this year, I'm really happy you asked that because I've spent this last few months focused on the Tuition Relief Act, which is part of the governor's plan. This would be increased student aids that would go to state schools currently. What I've done is kind of increase and really unite the student body by going out, working with the IFC, working with NAACP, working with CCSG, bringing them all together in a form of a coalition. We had a rally at Penn State, but we saw that one rally really wasn't going to accomplish anything. So we had the Temple, and we held a rally with them, we got them involved. We had the stories covered by the Associated Press, we had the stories covered by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Then we kept that up. Today I spoke at the rally in Rotunda, the third year that I've been at that event since my freshman year. Also, just yesterday, I had an opportunity to meet with the governor, which is in large part due to the efforts of myself, as well as the whole entire coalition, and also the work of UPUA and the Governmental Affairs Committee.
1 minute.
Thank you. Going back to the central idea, though, rallies, yes, they do make a difference. They're a very symbolic statement. But if all you're going to hang your coat on is symbolism, then there's not much there. There's a clear need to step out and do more. There's a clear need to go further. Today I met with 3 different legislators, from the Appropriations Committee to the Education Committee. I heard ideas, I held conversations. I don't just talk about ideas, I go out and make them a reality.
All right, next ticket will be
I believe that Rally can be a very effective tool to the tuition site when it is a larger point in a year-long, 365-day, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week effort to keep a watch on Harrisburg concerning appropriations to the schools, how higher education is funded, as well as other student issues. As the Governmental Affairs Committee Chairwoman this year, the center of my efforts for the Assembly has been actually this issue of tuition. We started a Pennsylvania State Association effort to bring together not only the state-related universities, but also the public universities and the community colleges in the Commonwealth, because we really feel that it's very important to have a united student voice, regardless of exactly the technical classification of your public school, to keep a constant watch in Harrisburg. And one of our platform goals is to expand upon Pennsylvania State Association, really get it started up so that it's not a part of the UPUA, it's not part of Penn State, but rather it is governed by an independent board of directors where every single school in Pennsylvania has an equal stake and can make this their constant focus to keep an eye on Harrisburg. I also was the coordinator for bringing Governor Rendell here yesterday. I organized my committee to drive down to Harrisburg and hand deliver an invitation to him with the backing of the Assembly in the form of legislation to invite him to the March 4th event that we had, which was Tuition Awareness Day. The Awareness Day was very successful. It brought a lot of press, it brought a lot of student awareness, which was our biggest goal for the day. And though the governor couldn't make it that day, he did then arrange to meet with a bunch of student leaders, as Gavin mentioned, yesterday, which is a big success, a very honest and open communication that will set a precedent going forward for undergraduate student voice going directly to higher officials.
Borsec?
I worked with local governments back at my home, and what's important in seeing working with local government is I saw the relationship and how to get things done in state government. The rallies that we've held this past year and years prior have been wonderful. And it's a great emotional stance for all students. But what is most effective is holding meetings with legislators and senators in Harrisburg. On Monday, I went down to Harrisburg for Capitol Day. I met with 6 members of the House and a member of our state Senate from my county of Westmoreland County. We were able to give Penn State students, the Penn State student body, a face and show them that this is affecting an individual, that here's a face,
Wait a minute.
here's what's going on. This is the inaction that you are taking by just laying down and letting this occur. What we need to help emphasize and work with student organizations and all campuses and all students is to meet with their legislators, to write mail to their legislators so they can put a face to what we all say is the Penn State student body. Collectively, people can just turn away. But when they have a face, when they can look into the eyes of an individual and say, you know what, I'm not going to help you, that's cold. If they're given a chance, if you go and speak with them, they can truly look. You can look them in the eye and say, this is what you're doing to me. I'm a human being. This is what you're doing. Provide us the necessary support for our future.
Thank you.
Okay, just before we start the next question, I just want to remind everybody, please try and speak into the mic as best as possible. We are having a little bit of trouble with the audio. Also, just to keep everybody aware, please, if possible, don't be on your cell phones. Thank you. The next question is, as you all know, Governor Ed Rendell made a visit to University Park yesterday and discussed tuition and appropriation issues, suggesting we should be thriftier. If elected, how would you go about interpreting the governor's advice? We'll start with the ticket of Borsec and Passaic.
Can you repeat the governor's quote, please?
I don't actually have the quote in front of me, but basically he had asked if we would asked us to be thriftier with or more frugal. So.
In these economic times, if you look at any business, you're going to have to make cuts. Realistically, you're going to have to make cuts. What was good to see this university work on is say they're all going to be salary cuts, or I'm sorry, salary freezes for this year. That's a good first step. Doesn't go far enough. We need to make serious cuts at this university to make sure tuition does not increase. It's important to keep tuition low and important to make these cuts because it's sending a message saying we are willing to make sacrifices. We are willing to work in collaboration with the state government. Every time the state government has tried to increase or has increased our state appropriations, we have come back with a tuition increase. This deters members of the legislature, which I've spoken with, and said, why are we going to give Penn State more money if they're just going to turn around and increase their tuition? It's almost hypocritical. This year is the utmost importance to make sure there is no tuition increase and make the serious cuts necessary for this university. If businesses are doing it across the board, if everyone else in the current economic crisis that we are in are doing it, why can Penn State University do it as well?
Okay, next, Kieran's.
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. As you all know, Governor Ed Rendell made a visit to University Park yesterday and discussed tuition and appropriation issues, suggesting we be thriftier. If elected, how would you go about interpreting the governor's advice?
It's easy to say that, in this role as UPUA president, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to freeze tuition, I'm going to freeze fees, I'm not going to allow anything to rise. To say that is naive. There's been a lot of student presidents who have run on this platform and have said that they're going to do this. You can go out and advocate for things within your role as UPUA. You can go out and do things, which I've done. Of all the things that were just talked about, Nick brought up, you really did bring up a lot of great points. There's definitely the ability for the university to always be thriftier, as the governor said. Within the meeting, he talked a lot about his frustrations with President Spanier and the administration. Something that I've done and been involved in since my beginning of this term has really been involved in conversations. I've had substantive conversations with a lot of top-notch administrators at this university, from the Vice President of Finance, Vice President of Student Affairs, the President Spanier, President of this university. So when everyone talks about what they will do, well, I can directly get involved in these type of meetings. I have the direct relationships and experience to actually make an impact. To say that tomorrow we're going to stop tuition, to say that we're going to stop tuition completely, it's not going to happen. What you need to look at is feasible gains. Something that I really focused on last year was not implementing the idea of facilities fee. This is something that students could have a hand on. And if we were united in this front, we could have easily shut down an effort to increase a $100 fee. Beginning next year, University Park specifically will pay a $100 facilities fee. It's already at $50. It was originally supposed to be $100 off the bat. Due to my work on the Student Activity Fee Board, which decided this, meeting with administrators, meeting with a plethora of different student leaders, I was able to at least thwart it somewhat and keep it at $50 for a year. Frankly, that wasn't doing enough either. And I think going back, as I said, I can speak to my experiences having been UPUA president this year. That's something I really want to focus on, uniting student leaders around an issue, because there's no reason we couldn't have defeated facilities fee. To sum it up, my experience with working with different administrators and student leaders makes me the most viable person to actually enact any type of change.
Time. Miller and Smith.
Having sat in the meeting with the governor and having had the opportunity to interact with him yesterday, the point that came across strongest to me was that the tuition issue concerning Penn State is never going to fully be solved by one party or another. It's a two-way street between the university and its administrators, and also with Harrisburg and the state. And actually, to even expand it, the budget is made up of a lot of philanthropic donors and alumni donors and things too, which is another aspect that I don't think UPUA has tapped too much into this year. That is another avenue to approach next year. However, I would say that next year we need to make sure that the undergraduate voice is directly represented by undergraduate students without any type of middle person or liaison to both sides, to the Harrisburg side and to the university administration side. And as mentioned before, on the Harrisburg side, there's various things we can do with the Pennsylvania Student Association and continuing on with Rally and making sure that the undergraduate students are informed and educated about issues of tuition so that they can personally get involved and start meeting with representatives, and they feel empowered to do so. But on the same end, start to speak with university administrators on not what they can do to cut tuition, but what we can do to cut costs. What are the student expenditure excesses? How much food is being wasted in the dining commons? How can we reward students for making sure lights are turned off in the building if they're in a classroom
30.
building, like Willard at night, when there's tons of empty classrooms and all the lights are on? How can we start to cut those costs to make the two-way streets start to work more fluidly and be able to have a conversation where now they're on the same page because they see efforts being made equally on both sides? And that's something Matt and I want to emphasize, is working with both sides directly as undergraduate students.
Thank you. All right. The next question. When electing a presidential ticket, students vote for both the president and the vice presidential candidates. To the VPs, while loosely defined, how do you interpret your role, and how do you ensure your leadership will be apparent and enjoyed by the student body? And we will start with the trans ticket.
For the next 2 minutes, I will take the role of Hillary Gupta.
That is acceptable.
Thank you. I'm actually going to speak as if I were her, so my experience within UPUA is paramount to any ticket, including the person I'm on with, Gavin Kieran's. I've been in UPUA since the beginning. I was one of the founding members. I've served as a 2-time chair of the Special Offensive Programming Committee. In addition to that, I've been president of my sorority, Delta Zeta, and have been a chief student leader on this campus. I even got to sit on the committee for the University Strategic Council. My experience trumps that of many of the other candidates, although they do also offer very respectable resumes themselves, but my experience with UPUA truly trumps them. As far as the vice presidential role, I have a lot of experience seeing what the vice president does, having sat in the assembly for 2.5 years, for sitting on the steering committee for 2 years, which decides which the vice president and president sit on, having an opportunity to work the inner workings of UPUA. I really feel that in this role I should truly be able to strive. A lot of the times...
1 minute, sorry.
It's okay. A lot of the times, as programming chair, I've had the opportunity to really branch out and tackle my own initiatives outside the programming world because I try to do my duty. Also, I've had a lot of experience as I served the Greek life. Now, with this opportunity to be vice president of the student, to now be vice president of the student body, will give me so much. Will give me the opportunity to really seek out concrete goals, be a true advocate for students. A lot of candidates are going to talk about uniting the student body and the roles and all of that. Well, I live it every day. Being a president of Greek life, being a leader at UPUA for 2.5 years, I'm the only choice for vice president. Thank you very much. And back to you, Gavin.
Miller?
Good evening. Everything's on. I've had to introduce myself tonight. I'm Matt Smith. As far as talking about the role of vice president, I was almost about to use a rebuttal on a piece of paper, and then I just figured that was just as silly. So what I'm going to say is there's absolutely no reason to think that any other vice presidential candidate has more experience than me. I'm a 5-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I served overseas in Iraq and Djibouti, and that's not even the reason why I'm running. I'm running because of all the blessings that I've had that have brought me here through Penn State. While I've been here, I've been the president of the Student Council. I have a little brother, 3 brothers, big sisters. I've been a coordinator for the World's Cure Diabetes. I sit on the Administrative Council of Undergraduate Education, which furthermore puts me in connection with some of the senior members of the university in the Office of Provost and the Vice President of Undergraduate Education. I know all the deans by name, and I absolutely think that I would do a fantastic job for you as your Vice President, especially because what my job would be is to direct the Assembly, which is one of the powers of the Vice President, and also hold Samantha to the same standards that I hold myself. I'm an extremist for Penn State. I am fanatic about this job, and I would love to be your Vice President.
Borsec ticket.
Hello, I'm Catherine Basique. I'd like to thank you for all being here today. As the Vice President of UPUA, running along with Nick Gorsick, I can say that I've had a lot of experience in the past year serving as Academic Affairs Director for CCSG. I but attended many university faculty senate meetings, getting an idea of what goes on at the university, experiencing the situations that are going on with the economic crisis, as well as events that are going on at Penn State in general, as well as prerequisite checking, which is one thing that I was able to hold a position on that no academic affairs was held on, no academic affairs director for UPUA held this year. I got to go attend their meetings, just got to see the experiences that they go through with just the different things that go on in prerequisite checking, which is kind of behind the scenes. I also was really heavily involved in first year engagement this year. It's something that I feel is really important at all the colleges throughout the university for freshman students. And I'm also getting involved next year with Andrea Dowhauer on a program for the future for students, first year students at Penn State, and as well as at the University Advising Council. And I guess just my last comment would be that I feel like my experiences have totally helped me through my past 3 years here at the university. But I know that experiences help, but at the same time, I feel like right now we need change at this university, and I'm looking more forward to the future and not actually the past. So.
Next question is, excuse me, how would you rate your knowledge of the UPUA Constitution, and why do you give yourselves that rating? Also, if you were to propose 2 amendments, what would they be? We will start with the ticket of Gorsick and Pasega.
I would say my knowledge of the UPUA Constitution is strong but can grow. And that's with any constitution or any written document. There's always many ways you can look into interpretations of any document. Sitting on the Student Activity Fee Board, we've seen that through the Student Activity Fee Handbook guidelines, that you can interpret those guidelines in many ways. In a constitution, it's even greater. So as an individual who's actually been involved in creation of many constitutions, of many constitutions, you have to recognize that. So I would say it's strong, but it can always grow from that perspective. 2 amendments, I believe I should be in the position, and Catherine in the same position, we shouldn't be here saying what the amendment should be. Who should be saying what the amendment should be is the student body. We want the student body, we want to go out into an educational program of showing the student body what UPUA exactly is, what its job is, what its duties are, and what the responsibilities they perform throughout the year. To then look at that, and how can UPUA be more effective and efficient in their way of advocating for the student body here at University Park. So that's what we would say about looking at amendments. This isn't about our UPUA as Nick Morse and Catherine Sakis, but everyone's UPUA, and that's the mindset that we're walking into and looking forward.
Thank you. Next, Miller and Smith.
As a member of UPUA, I would give myself a solid A. Unfortunately, there's no A+ system here at the university, but I'm well versed in the Constitution. I regularly hold other members of the Assembly to the same high standards for knowing the inside of the Constitution. And I additionally make sure that I always follow the letter of it. However, it is only a very young document, even though it was tightened up considerably in the last year. I would definitely have one more position for what is considered an adult learner, Penn State, which is either a veteran or someone 24 years of age or older. Not just because I want to put someone like myself in the assembly, but because they are a growing constituency here at Penn State that needs to be recognized. I think that experience is what will contribute extensively to the executive board. I would also like to make sure that the chair of the assemblies, who is the overall speaker for the UPUA assembly, his roles are clarified, just like the vice president needs to be a little bit more clarified, and that would be done so by essentially making him the voice that he needs to be, and not essentially what he is right now, which is the secretary counterpart from the executive. And I really feel bad for you, Ralph, so if you're watching, I'll change that.
And just to follow up, on my end, as a member of the Assembly and also as Assembly Chair and serving my second term for the UPUA, I would also give myself solid A. And in addition to what Matt proposed, I saw a pattern of the Executive Board turning into a representative body that ultimately then became very ineffective. And I want to make sure that representation stays in the Assembly where it belongs, not in the Executive Board. So I would propose adding a LGBTA seat into the Assembly. There used to be one, it was taken away. There was one specifically for a member of that community, and that role needs to come into the Assembly as a voting role instead of being in the Executive as a voice.
And lastly, Kieran Zagupta.
Repeat the question, please.
Sure, the question is, how would you rate your knowledge of the UPUA Constitution and why do you give yourself that rating? And if you were to propose 2 amendments, what would they be?
Tough question. I would give myself a 9.3, which on the university scale, I guess it would be an A in most classes. I would say that as my term as president, you have to understand the inner workings of the Constitution. Before that, I was involved in, as the whole debate was ensuing as to whether UPUA's Constitution should actually be enabled. Before that, there was a board known as the Board of 5 that was made up of heavily administrative influence. I've been involved with that Constitution since its early days. My chief of staff, Mike Anderson, is one of the chief architects of that. So throughout this year, I've really had a strong understanding, and you have to. If you're running for UPUA president, you should. So really, it's kind of a silly question, but since it was asked. One of the things that I want to do is the all-college cabinet. This was a student government in the 1940s and 50s. Having my experience and really caring about this position, I wanted to look and see the best models. So what I looked at the old collegiate archives and the different archives as far as what was the best model. This was made up of all the premier student leaders at Penn State. It used to be a voting block, and basically they made all decisions. What I'm asking for is not that, but uniting students together, not to make decisions, but to be to unite them on major issues. For instance, the Tuition Relief Act or the facilities fee last year. And this would be the ultimate way to make the student body president truly speak for students. It wouldn't be a way of controlling power. It wouldn't be a way of saying that this is the official, this is what students say. It would still have to come to the assembly, but it will allow the student body president to speak for all students. The other thing I'd like to do is also, Matt brought up a good point as far as the vice president chair. Stole words right. But there's a specific clause that I find to be really alarming and has a lot of power for abuse, and that's the 3% that the chair of the assembly is given discretionary. To give somebody, a chief person who was not even elected by the student body, that authority is really alarming. And while Ralph did a good job this year, we really need to ensure that that is looked at and fixed. Thank you.
We're going to take a rebuttal.
Okay. We have 2 minutes for the rebuttal.
When it comes to the all-college cabinet, there are a couple of things that need to be addressed, and I feel that it would be misleading to say that the reason why it should have stayed in the 40s and 50s is the reason why it isn't here now. That's because you can't anticipate what student organizations are going to become important 10, 20, 30 years down the line. It's just going to cause a lot of infighting that will actually end up detracting from the effectiveness of the student government. Maybe not now. There's always going to be close personal now. But 10 years from now, do you want to have a student government spend 2 or 3 years working out what the all-college cabinet should be consistent of, and why, and what the role of those groups in the organization should play? I really feel that this would be detrimental to the effectiveness of UPUA, not just now, but into the future.
Additionally, we're looking to empower students at large, all 38,000 of them, and include them into decisions that affect their life at this university, and not just leaders who already have a very good sense of what's going on, already are empowered in their positions to be a voice to the university. And we really feel like the creation of this all-college cabinet would further isolate the other thousands of students who may not be in those positions, because, let's face it, there's only so many presidents that can exist within these so many student organizations on campus, And we're not running a campaign on isolating all the students. We're running a campaign on bringing them into the center of student government. And this very all-college cabinet idea would work very contrary to what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you. You want to take a rebuttal? Okay.
Let me know when you get it. Go. All right. Little background about the all-college cabinet. Obviously, this is an idea. When you bring a new idea and you speak of change, people start to freak out. It's very natural. So what I've been doing is saying, going out to these student leaders, going out to these student presidents, sending them on my platform, saying, take a look at this, I would meet with you. What I've been doing is going around and meeting with these major student organizations. I'm not talking about the mom and pop club. I'm talking about organizations like the IFC, Atlantic Council, an organization which all three of us spoke at last night. I'm talking about uniting all these major student organizations so the student body president can still talk for the entire student body. You still have the assembly, who would still vote on all the material. And your hope is that that would become the up-and-coming at-large representatives who would one day want to sit on that. Plus, the model that I currently have, which is more than willing to be changed and worked out as far as how the various student leaders want. But the core mission, as far as how it stands, would actually allow for, if a major student organization came into play or a major student organization fell out of favor, that the UPUA president has a lot of leeway as far as appointing different members. I just want to go over the organizations that would be a part of this. UPUA president, UPUA vice president, secretary treasurer, CCSG president, graduate student association president, the IC president, Penn Health, ARSH, NAACP, Student Program Association, UPAC, Multicultural Good Council, National Pan-Atlantic Council, Student Athlete Advisory Board, Off-Campus Student Union, and Student Trustees. In addition, there's a chance for 3 rotating seats as it currently stands. Black Caucus, Latino Caucus, Blue White Society, Line Ambassadors, Homecoming Thon, the overall for Cabinet, Rainbow Roundtable, International Student Council, Chair of the Faculty Senate Student Caucus, and Pride. In addition, there's 2 at-large members which can be appointed, one from multicultural diversity groups and one from at-large. I'm sorry, but that is uniting the student body. That is bringing them all under one umbrella so that the president of UPUA can speak for the entire student body, which is what I plan to do if reelected.
I would also like to make another announcement to please refrain from cell phone and other electronic device use right now. Thank you.
All right, next question. Those who are first-year and transfer students may not be familiar with clubs and organizations at University Park and may be hesitant to join. If elected, how do you plan on reaching out to those first-year and transfer students, specifically informing about UPUA? I'm going to start with the Bursic Coseca ticket.
Being a transfer student is very difficult to any university. And it must be extremely daunting to become such a great and large university as Penn State is. 2 events that are held throughout the year are Winter Welcome, which are held for incoming students who are transfer students and students changing campus from Commonwealth campuses in January for the spring semester. And also another gathering that we hold at the beginning of the fall semester in late August. These are 2 great programs in their principle, but we need to do more. We need to outreach to students more. We need to get them to come to us and give them a reason why they would want to come to these events. Catherine and I were the 2 only individuals up here that attended both of those events, working with transfer students, showing them around the campuses. Even when during the spring semester on the Winter Welcome there was about almost 2 feet of snow on the ground. But we still were drudging along, and we showed them the important buildings. We asked them, what classrooms are you have? What type of classes are you looking at? What student organizations are you interested in? And we sat down with them, had honest discussions with them. We got down their contact information, remained in contact with them, and tried to help them along through the first couple weeks, because it can be quite a daunting process. So what we hope to create is more of an outreach from student government, because we believe student government should be outreaching to these students, because we represent every student, not just the heads of organizations, but every student on this campus. And that is the pinnacle of our platform and our candidacy.
Miller Smith ticket.
I'm actually very excited about this question because I can answer it from a personal standpoint. I actually am a transfer student. My freshman year, I spent my first semester in fall of '06 at Wake Forest University in North Carolina, and ended up transferring January of '07 to Penn State University. I've never been on a tour. I've been on the campus once to visit someone over the summer. I didn't know much about it because all of my applications and all of my research about the university had been done from my computer in North Carolina, and that's all I had to go on. So when I came here, I do remember feeling extremely lost, and that there was a very big void in terms of programming. It really felt like I was dropped onto the campus, told to find a building to meet with an advisor, and that was the end of my affirmation to the Penn State community. And knowing this and having had this experience personally, I feel that I'm very well equipped to know how other students are going to feel in the same situation because I've been there. One of the things that Matt and myself, our platform stands for, is the publication of student handbook. What needs to happen is this handbook would include Penn State history and traditions, student organization directory, services and resources that are available. So rather than having to find all this on their own, representatives from UPUA would go to where the transfer students meet when they get their FitCap scores and are told where to go for advisors, hand deliver this handbook to them free of charge, explain what it does, and then invite them to an event put on by the UPUA. The personal invitation and the personal delivery of the handbook will help these students because it would have helped me feel like now they have a connection to the university, someone to turn to, and something that they can pull out of their desk at all times that would explain to them basically anything they needed to know about how to join something they're passionate about, where to find a building, what kind of service they can reach out to if they need something specific, and that's a plan that I know will help students.
I'm really glad you asked this question. I see this as a paramount opportunity to kind of hit up a few of the bigger ideas of my platform. One of them, which, as I sent this out, the common response is speak to every freshman. Wow, that's ambitious. Almost doubtful that I could accomplish it. We have almost 25 people coming back from the assembly next year. Maybe that number's larger offhand. I don't have the exact number. Many of those, I hope to gain some type of endorsement from them in the next coming days. I'm very confident in the people coming back. I'm very confident in the sophomores, juniors that they're going to take on more senior leadership roles. That's why when I unveiled my platform in 40 pages, I knew that they could accomplish a great deal of that. I spent a lot of this year doing concrete things, legal services, training. But when it comes to next year, I want to really focus on the outreach. That's why I've already set up meetings and had meetings. I met with Gail Hurley, last year's Vice President for Student Affairs, and the Associate Vice President for Business and Auxiliary. I met with Damon to talk about this, Vice President Sims to talk about this, have a meeting with the head of Residence Life, Diane Andrews, to talk about this. I will be on every forum, but what I want to focus on is about how you get involved and about getting used to this. You can say, well, this is where your classes are, those type of things. That's great, but the role of the student body should be to enhance your overall experience. So what I'd like to do is to talk about what it means to be a Penn Stater, to talk about the history, George Atherton, Evan Pugh. The idea is restore the student body, intertwining with the current experiences today, and really hitting home the idea of getting involved.
30 seconds.
In addition, I think we need to really hit up the idea of revamping FitCap to move to an overnight model, similar to a lot of our other Big Ten peers. As far as transfer students, I think it's a great opportunity to work with the Department of Continuing Education, as this is really their opportunity in their realm. Lastly, as far as some type of guide, I think this is a clear opportunity to work with ARSH, because this is really their territory as far as first year and on-campus living. So, thank you.
All right, we have 2 minutes starting now.
I think this is an excellent point that we're starting to see this evening, that especially seen this year. Experience does not necessarily mean results. Some of us have been in positions to enact a lot of change and to solve a lot of these issues. Problem is, a lot of these issues still exist. So, what Catherine and I are sitting here this evening and throughout this campaign season are coming to you saying, let's do something different. Let's not have the same thing happen again. It's easy to promise something, it's easy to bring something up as an issue, but it's much more important to take action on it. to make good on those promises and to truly enact change on this campus. Catherine and I this year did a good job at kind of getting an idea of how we can better reach out to incoming freshmen and transfer students. And we've seen through classes of which we attended, see that the foundation's good, but there's a lot of room that needs to be worked on. And not just with this issue, and multiple issues throughout this university. So I want to remind you that it's not just experience. Sometimes experience works against you because you can ask those individuals, if this is still an issue, why wasn't it taken care of last year?
Okay, before the next question, I just want to remind all the tickets that they've each used one rebuttal, and you have one rebuttal remaining. The next question that I have is, overcrowding on CATA buses has been a recurring issue at University Park. If elected, how would you work with CATA in order to alleviate this issue? We're going to start with the Miller-Smith campaign.
Absolutely. Overcrowding is clearly an issue on the buses. We've all ridden them. Basically, how that would work is there is this division within the auxiliary services that handles the busing routes, and it just clearly needs to be cleaned up. There's always room for student improvement. A lot of the ideas that are created that are really great by students, faculty, and administrators could all be improved by bringing everyone together. And I think that that's where we come to the table to alleviate those crowding situations. There's no simple solution to this. There's not just going to be another purchasing of a bus or throwing wads of money at the problem. It's about working together to solve the problem with administrators and faculty and pointing out an issue. It needs to be brought to students. UPUA is so unknown at the university still that no one comes to the open student forums to talk about a problem like this, even though we read about it in the Collegian every day. And Samantha and I would handle that. We would make sure that UPUA is out there, hearing what's going on with students, keeping the pulse, and making sure that when an issue like crowding on buses gets out of control, that we can go to administrators immediately to make sure that it gets alleviated.
Next, Kieran Zungupta.
Yeah, I'm really glad again that you brought this up. This is something that I actually, the idea of improving CATA services, something I had one of my campaign managers had set up a meeting today, yesterday, with the head of transportation, Department of Transportation. As far as overcrowding, that's always going to be an issue, especially during the cold weather seasons. One of the things you can do is work with the Department of Transportation to really prep for this and have increased bus service during those times. That's a very simple solution, a very concrete solution. Overall, though, I think it's pretty good as far as how the white loops and the blue loops have run, and you have that free ability to get CATA services. One of the things, though, as far as CATA, that we're talking about, is one, we have this idea of a Greek loop within the platform, and that loop will be on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, especially on Front Row and on Garner Street, hitting up different spots and picking up students who travel out to the Turkey District. This is really all about safety, which, as you see in the platform, there's a lot of initiatives geared that way. And what this would do is provide you with a way of getting home to Easton Pollock Halls, and really, especially for freshmen, avoid those early underages. Another thing that we want to do is the idea of a 24-hour CATA service. This is actually possible. It's something I want to explore. It's not necessarily something that 100% we're going to do because it would require a type of fee to students, and you're always reluctant to tax students at all. But especially during the weekends, adding on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, adding hours of operation can really save money in the end for students. They wouldn't have to use taxis or those type of things. And also really improves the idea of safety. Going home from the bars, going home from an off-campus party, a fraternity party, you now have a means of going, because I know some of you night owls, you're staying out past 2:30 when the buses stop, and Hillary and I will look out for you, so thank you.
And now, Gorsuch and Paseka.
CATA bus services, I think, is a serious issue, especially you see this being a serious issue days that have poor weather, and even more so right outside of East Halls. where we're starting to see safety concerns with so many people trying to get on the bus service. To really look at this issue, we have to first target the problem areas, such as outside of East Halls, right by Petit Library, and also at Allen Street, the corner of College and Allen Street. We need to target the problem areas. Why are there problems there? And try and make sure, first off, to ensure the safety of every student. That no one's getting pushed around, and they're losing things of that kind. We need to first and foremost focus on their safety. Second, we need to look at the loop and link service. Is this the most effective way currently to have a loop and link service? Is it possible for us to expand loop and link, not by adding more buses to the systems, but having different buses go in different areas so we can alleviate some of the busing routes, especially when it comes to right outside of East Halls, the T Library, and the corner of Allen College. With their bus service.
And Karen Zagupta. Oh, sorry. Miller Smith. So everybody hear one on this question? Okay, sorry. I must have lost track of that. All right. Next question. Awesome. I guess we'll send through all in the, it's a good debate.
All right. The offices of President and Vice President of UPUA require a great deal of time and commitment from both students. All of you have other time commitments, some more consuming than others. If elected, how will you guarantee that UPUA will be your first priority? And we'll start with the Karen Scoop's ticket.
Simple. If I continue what I did this year, I made UPUA my top priority, spent the same as a full-time job. To me, I remember when I ran last year, there's this idea of you could do multiple organizations, those type of things, and no, if you want to be president of the student body, you need to make this your chief focus, supreme to anything else. Last year I was involved, I worked a job, I was involved in other student organizations, I hosted a radio show, I did a lot of different things. But when it came time to be this year, I gave them all up and said, I'm going to focus on UPUA and making sure that we are the best way of serving the true student voice at Penn State. And frankly, I think we've been pretty successful doing that, and I think we can improve on certain things, but I think that this year has really shown UPUA as a solidified voice. As far as Hillary goes, I'm not going to take her role this time, I'll just speak for her. Hillary's already made the commitment to stepping away from all her other organizations. Obviously, she has a lot of great inner workings, being past president of her sorority Delta Zeta, and also being also being a two-time program and chair of UPUA. It's with this type of experience that it's not necessary for us to take on other roles, take on other leadership. The student body, the student leaders, the students of this campus already know who we are. We've already shown what we're capable of. And really, this year is just the beginning. We want to continue to expand upon that next year. Thank you very much.
All right, Miller ticket.
Yes, being the president of the undergraduate student body, and especially particularly Penn State, a very large undergraduate student body, obviously requires a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And I'm very willing to give all of that to this organization because I believe so much in it, and I also believe so much in the students of Penn State, and they are worth every second of my time next year if I'm elected. In terms of any questions regarding my current commitments, the other largest commitment I have, in addition to being an assembly officer for the UPUA, is being an executive board member of the Penn State Line Ambassadors. And while I would retain general membership, I am not seeking an executive role next year because I cannot do that and honestly promise to commit myself to the position I'm seeking in UPUA. General membership is as much of a time commitment as you make it, and while I would have to play a more minimal role in my ambassadors, it's something I'm willing to do for this position.
Additionally, the office of the vice president requires my total commitment, and that's what I'm going to give it. Even just tonight, I was fully aware that while I was being taken away because the debate was moved against Samantha and my wishes, that the committee that I currently chair was in very capable hands under other student leaders that I've developed over the year, and they've also been working to essentially do what I'm doing, and that's transitioning. I've already set up the next academic affairs chair, and I would be fully capable of taking on the intense role of the vice president. I will be willing to work with all the students of the assembly. And I also just want to say that I already consider going and talking to every freshman given, and I think that's absolutely something that I can and will do. And Samantha and I already believed in. I'm glad we were able to pass that same spirit and intensity along this year.
Well, as our role as president and vice president obviously is a large time commitment. And we take that very seriously. From my personal standpoint, next year only taking 13.5 credits a semester. Typically I'm an 18 credit per semester type of guy. I'm going to have an extreme amount of free time on my hands. And I promise to devote every hour of that to this campus, to student government, and to better the cause. Furthermore, it's not just about how much time you spend with an organization and being a student leader. It's the quality and what you are actually doing during that time. I can log in and say, I've given 8 hours to myself today. That doesn't mean anything if you can't show something for it. So what's important to remember is not that it's about time, which I give completely to myself. You have to prioritize, you have to make those sacrifices. But it's about the quality and what you are doing, what you're achieving during that time.
Being vice president of UPUA as a close second to president would definitely take up a lot of time and a lot of commitments in my life, but I'm certainly willing to do that. I'm huge, a little bit OCD, and time management has been a thing that I've always been, has been like a huge part of my life. I'm involved in a bajillion activities and I always put a lot of commitment to a lot of them. But next year I am not doing as many of the things I was doing before. I plan on, I'm only taking 12 credits next semester due to not graduating early, so I feel like I have a lot of time to put into being vice president, and I'm willing to attend as many meetings as possible that I have to, and doing whatever I can to be the best vice president I can be.
Thank you.
We're going to take our vote.
Alrighty. 1 second. Alright, you may begin now.
Going off of what Nick said, I just wanted to sort of take offense to the fact that this is the second time in the debate that's been inferred that experience in UPUA meant that some members who are sitting up here tonight are essentially just saying that they took on a title and didn't play any significant role in the outcome of what's going on at the university. As Academic Affairs Chair this year, I, to begin with, have opened up religious absences for students. I've fought to get students a final exam appeals process. I've worked to basically make myself name recognizable with all the associate deans. I've actually been able to get several members referred, several of our freshmen that I've worked to develop references from some of the associate deans for going to the Presidential Leadership Academy. And there are a number of resolutions and consultative reports that I would love to pass on to anyone that has questions about my leadership this year in the University Partner Graduate Association. Okay?
Additionally, I've made significant contributions to the Penn State community through UPUA. In addition to the tuition work I highlighted before, which took a lot of time and a lot of energy, and ultimately culminated in the governor actually coming and meeting with student leaders yesterday, I also worked very hard on various pieces of legislation, including, right off the bat at the beginning of the year, getting UPUA signed on to a national movement called Service Nation, which is a call to action that would ultimately benefit students with student aid if it passes through the legislature on a national level by their commitment to civilly serving their country in return for tuition reimbursement and tuition aid and things like that. So working that on the Assembly this year should prove testament that our experience will only aid our election next year.
Next question. Previously, free legal service was offered to University Park students before the program was canceled a few years ago. Recently, UPUA has attempted to restore this service. If elected, would you continue to lobby for the renewal of this service? If yes, how? And if no, why? We will start with the Miller-Smith campaign.
Yes, I'm very much a proponent for free legal services for students. I think it's an extremely important issue, and I think it's an extremely important service that they need. In fact, the legislation for the Assembly to approve the free legal services and the framework for creating one was passed through my committee, myself as a sponsor of it. So I expressed on the record, through my voting record, that I am a proponent of this. I will continue the push for free legal services. It's a very noble cause that was started this year and has yet to be completed and needs to be pursued. In terms of whether or not the student activity fee should be raised this year in order to fund these free legal services, that I am not a proponent of. I would be if we had any data from the student body that said that they would be willing to pay more money for these free legal services. Because there's been no referendum, there's been no polling, I would hesitate to place additional financial burden on them, especially with everything going on in terms of the tuition crises that we've all already set up here to address. And I think that in the future, it might be an avenue. I think there's other funding avenues to explore, but I absolutely feel that before we charge the students further, they need to have expressed a very actively and very forcefully that they are willing to pay for those services, because they really wouldn't be that free if they're paying $2 to $5 extra for them on their tuition next year.
The ticket of Borsig and Passaic.
The issue of legal services has been an issue, especially with the Student Activity Fee Board, that has almost fulfilled our entire year thus far. For the Borsig Passaic ticket, we fully endorse having free legal services at this campus, at University Park. Every student should have free legal services at this university. The issue that comes up is, should it be funded by the student activity fee? No. The problem with having it being paid by the student activity fee is because it sets a precedent. 3 years ago, legal services was cut out of student affairs. Student affairs used to provide such a service to every student at this campus. Problem with having it come to the SAF is it sets a precedent stating that anything that student affairs cuts, anything they cut, could be 3 years later down the line picked up by students, by the fee the students are paying for, which should be going towards programming, co-curricular, extracurricular activities that benefit student life. Now, that point that was made at the Student Activity Fee Board meeting was actually acknowledged and agreed to, that it was concerning by both the chair of the UPUA Assembly and Mr. Cairns himself. That is concerning. What we would like to do is work with student affairs, the Dickinson School of Law, and Penn State administration in general to find a way to fund free legal services for every student. That's the best and only avenue we can go about this.
And the Cairns and Gupta campaign.
This has been something that has been my chief initiative, Valerie and I, during our first term as president and vice president. When we first were elected, we put out this 40-day plan of how we wanted to get done within 40 days, but we found out soon that this was going to take a long while. August 2nd, the day after David Sims, new vice president, was appointed to his new role, I sat down in his office and said, David, this is something I want to do, and this is something concretely that I want to see for students this year. After that, I set up a meeting with the dean of the law school, Philip McConaughey. Since that time, I've had a lot of discussions with students. I get emails on a regular basis from students telling me how much they want this. And it's not a question of if there's a need or not. UPUA and GSA have both passed resolutions through our bodies saying that this is what they want. The idea of fees and all that, obviously we never wanted to go to fees. But this entire year we've spent trying to find ways of trying to fund this. That includes seeking out donors, that includes the general funds, that includes UPUA budget. At this point, we're at the Student Activity Fee Board, which Nick talked about, but I'm not going to get into the semantics and the parliamentary procedure arguments that have gone on and what has been a mess. What I'm going to talk to you about is how worthwhile this service is. Basically, what this would do is that in the event that you get in trouble, specifically, not necessarily get in trouble, in the event that you need help, whether it be tenant-landlord issues, credit consumer issues, contract law, you have an actual attorney who can represent you in court, saving you thousands of dollars in court fees.
30.
Thanks. And this will profoundly make an impact on your lives, or at least if you need it. In the long run, we also have a set-out plan to expand it to 3 attorneys, the same way they do at University of Indiana and other big institutions. Right now, we're at a disservice because we're one of the few institutions in all the Big Ten and all the major higher education that does not have this service. As your president, I want you to have top-notch services, and I will make sure that happens. Thank you.
All right, next question. Penn State has many diverse groups at University Park. How do you plan on working with the many diverse groups on campus? And we will start with the Borsec ticket.
This is a great question, because we want diversity close to our hearts. Because we believe the greater diversity you can have in an educational institution, the better education that anyone can receive at that institution. Sadly, at Penn State, there's not enough diversity at this campus or at this university as a whole. We want to work with every student organization that is concerned with such an issue, and first, create a dialogue of what are the issues, the real detailed issues about diversity on this campus and why we are lacking in that area. Second, we want to create a diversity forum that occurs throughout the year where students can come in and openly discuss in an open atmosphere, no holds barred, about diversity at Penn State. Thirdly, we want to hold a summit where we can all come together and discuss diversity, create a strategic plan from the student perspective,
1 minute.
and hopefully create goals with 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years down the line of where we want to see diversity at Penn State. Without diversity, we become closed-minded and we aren't as open to different cultures, which is such a shame. And I know there's a lot of individuals on this campus who are working hard to increase the diversity so we become more open-minded, learn other cultures, and truly become global
30 seconds.
citizens. And we think that's of utmost importance.
Kieran's ticket.
Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for asking this question. I'll speak of my body of work this year as UPUA president. One of the things, when it came down to this idea of the Tuition Relief Act, I didn't go to just CCSG or just UPUA and say, hey, we're the student government organizations, let's do this. I realized this was an issue that affects a broad diversity of students, different colors, different races, different cultures, and after the fact that I realized this, I went out and spoke to other organizations. The NAACP became an integral part of this Pennsylvania Tuition Coalition. But I didn't just stop it there either. I went to other organizations, the Black Caucus, the Caribbean Student Association, and tried to bring them in. I think often we talk about diversity as it's just a completely separate entity. And while there's a need to focus on diversity and incorporating diversity, there's a need to really incorporate diversity into the overall operation. That's why on the issues like this Tuition Relief Act, I didn't say, you're a diverse organization. I said, you're a student of Penn State. You make a major impact on this campus. We need you to be a part of this. And that is what I have been doing and will continue to do. In addition to that, on my all-college cabinet idea, is you bring the different diversity and multicultural groups to the table. You have them involved in all the dialogue so that you're not putting them out as separate organizations. You're putting them as the overall Penn State student body having a strong voice, which they already do, and enhancing their voice on this campus. I have NAACP, the Black Caucus, International Student Council, the Rainbow Roundtable. What Hillary and I are trying to do is unify the student body as much as possible. And through efforts like the all-college cabinet, through efforts like I've already shown it my first term as president, we will be able to do that. Thank you very much.
Miller ticket.
The question addressed diverse student groups, and I think that because diverse student groups can be interpreted 2 ways, it deserves a 2-part answer. The first part is diverse student groups would include all student organizations that have undergraduates on this campus, whether they be a diversity group, whether they be a Greek group, whether they be a performing arts group, and our platform calls for student-centered student government, and we would incorporate every single group, regardless of who they are, because they are all our constituents and they all deserve to be included in the student government decisions. We're not going to be exclusive to which diverse groups we allow in. It's the mom and pop ones as well as the larger, more well-known ones. In terms of diversity, a very large chunk of our platform deals with diversity groups. We have a lot of plans that we believe would be very effective in bringing diversity groups into the center of the student government as well. We want to have diversity group leaders sit as a standing member of the UPUA Diversity and Student Life Committee and act as members and advisors to students on the assembly who sit on this committee. They know best what issues the student government needs to address, and being part of that committee brings their voice directly into discussions and directly onto the floor through that committee. We also want to hold focus groups. It is now a
30 seconds.
plan that's been 2 years in the works and still has yet to be addressed in terms of campus climate. And the publication of the results of this focus groups would go out to every single undergraduate student to show that not all students have the same experience at Penn State, not all students have a positive experience at Penn State, and once all students are aware of the different types of experiences that exist, we can all work together to make sure that everyone is having the best experience possible.
Next question. I have spoken to many people who have had issues transferring credits attained on study abroad programs. If elected, which department would you work with on this issue, and how would you advocate to said department to make the process run more smoothly? Starting with the Kieran's Gupta ticket.
As far as departments within UPUA, I would look no further than our Academic Affairs Committee. Even when there's a transition between USG and UPUA, the Academic Affairs Committee, or the Academic Assembly as it was called, has always been the strong point. Much of our leadership has come from this. I know I sat on it last year, as well as Valerie Russell. Our chair of the Assembly, Ralph Cavallo, has taken a very integral part in this, and I can say that we're in good hands as well with my current opponent, Vice President's candidate, Matt Smith. There's already been efforts made this year on behalf of the Academic Affairs Committee. One of those is the idea of the study abroad arbitration panel. I know that Matt can talk a little bit about it, but I know he had some pushback when he originally introduced that idea. That being said, I think it's those type of ideas and that type of idea is a very strong one. The editorial in the collegiate really backed that idea up. And I think it's something that students, specifically, I know my Vice President, Valerie Russell, had a tough time getting all her credits transferred over from her, study abroad experience. So I know that we're in short hands with the Academic Affairs Committee, specifically because of the roles, constantly working with the different deans, sitting on AQ, having a major voice in what goes on, and a lot of that's credit to the chairs as well as the membership of it. I know much of our leadership now has come from that committee, and I've always been very pleased with the work of that committee and will continue to be.
30.
Thanks.
Okay, next, Borsika Paseka.
Can I also ask you to repeat the question, please?
Sure. The question is, I have spoken to many people who have had issues transferring credits attained on a study abroad program. If elected, which department would you work with on this issue, and how would you advocate to said department to make the process run more smoothly?
As a student who studied abroad last summer, as well as somebody who serves on academic affairs committees, or as the academic affairs director and serves on committees that deal with academics, I feel that an issue like this goes along with transfer credits and things like that, as well as just the prerequisites for what courses require, what majors require, and things like that. To make this process go a little bit more smoothly, I think that you have to get to determine when you read the course requirements for a class, or you read the course requirements for a major, and you focus on what's required for both. If students apply for different study abroad programs that they know the credits are going to transfer before this happens, students are more aware of the programs that transfer between Penn State and through other, obviously, programs outside of the United States and even other schools within the United States. If students are more aware of what's going on before they make the commitment to study abroad in certain programs, it's a lot simpler than after the fact. Students that study abroad are given they're given information about the programs that they're doing and the programs that they're attending, and also the classes they'll be taking there, but they don't always know if it's going to be able to be transferred onto the Penn State credits. If they're way more aware of this, if Penn State works more closely with other programs outside of
30.
just the Penn State classes, I think that the situations like that, especially through different academic committees, will be able to be solved a lot more smoothly.
Okay, and the Miller Smith ticket.
I appreciate Sam passing over the mic because I was the academic affairs chair this year, and I also appreciate Gavin talking about the study abroad board of arbitration because it gives me an opportunity to talk to you about somewhere where I failed last year, and I failed the students' body by not making the study abroad board of arbitration follow through. I thought it was a really good idea, and unfortunately I took a few missteps and it didn't come to fruition. So I backtracked and came up with a better solution. I'm working through the Administrative Council of Undergraduate Education this year. We have now a proposal that was passed through recently that allows students to, and I would ask your college to talk a little further about this. When you go to study abroad, accept the opportunity to take transfer credits for studying abroad, and we'll encourage you to, not risk that GPA when you're going abroad if you're in a major that has a high risk of decline by studying abroad. And an idea that I hadn't even brought up yet and that I was going to work on independently, but I would love to talk about in this forum, is getting a dedicated student in the Office of Global Programs. A student will be the most responsive to another student's needs from not having their credits transferred from abroad. And I feel that we can really work with the Office of Global Programs through the Senate and through other administrators to make sure that we can get a dedicated student position within that office that would handle student relations to make sure the transfer credits do get processed as fast as possible.
Next question. Do you feel that Penn State was cheated by not being allowed to be in the men's NAAC tournament? If so, what rank do you feel they should have received? And I may note, please limit the length of your response. We'll start with the Kieran's ticket.
Absolutely, it should have been tournament. This is, I guess, my third year at University Park, and this is the best team I've seen. I know the last team that was any good was really Joe Crispin team, and it's really good to see Penn State having an increased basketball presence. I know last night I didn't get a chance to see it, but I was very happy to see the Tower Battle making that three and going on to eventually beat George Mason in the NIT. Our body of work compared to that of schools like Illinois and Ohio State, I would argue would be better. But with the strength of schedule early on, playing schools like New Jersey Institute of Technology, which hasn't won a game, or hadn't at the time won a game, and God knows, it's hard to say if they should or should not. I think they did a disservice themselves to their early season schedule. But I think that looking forward, we have a really promising program. There's talk of Taylor Battle's half-brother coming to Penn State as well in 2 years, so we should hopefully solidify the basketball program. It's good to see Ed DeChillis really kind of...
1 minute.
Come on, man. It's good to see Ed DeChillis really having a strong team. I know my freshman year when I was involved with the undergraduate student government, which was the precursor to UPUA, I was in the executive cabinet as the business director, and something I did was work on an auction, and the basketball team actually gave me a signed ball. When I tried to auction it off, no one really wanted it, which was disheartening.
30 seconds.
Okay. This was very disheartening to me, but now I feel that if I try to auction off, I'll at least get $6. So thank you.
All right, we will now go with the Bursek ticket.
It was disheartening when we were going back on Sunday, traveling back, and I made sure we got home in time and watching on CBS when they were enrolling, and I saw that certain teams came out, and I saw Arizona come up. Our chances weren't good. And it was a shame because this was a tremendous team this year. To go up to Michigan State and beat them on their home turf for the first time is incredible. Even more so that our coach for Penn State basketball was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. I mean, just absolutely tremendous season. It was a shame to see them not in a tournament. But what's important now is for us to get behind them and so improve the selection committee wrong. And so Penn State can take it all the way to the NIT championship and win it.
and win it soundly. I think that's the best thing we can do right now. Going through the selection process, I mean, I'm a March Madness fanatic when it comes to it. And it was hard to see teams such as Mississippi State or USC simply get a little hot streak at the right time and win their conference championships. And because of that, they received automatic bids. When I knew, Penn State knew, and pretty much the entire world knew that Penn State was a much better team than those two teams. But it's a system, and we have to live with the system. So what I was hoping that every student gets behind is our team right now, so we can push through the NIT and win that championship and prove everyone else wrong.
Yeah. All right, and last Miller ticket.
Well, funny this question was asked, because actually when I'm not doing work for UPUA, I'm home crunching odds and scores for basketball teams and trying to make solid predictions on NCAA rankings, and I don't know, by my math, they should have been ranked at 7. So that's going to be my answer. In all actuality, Dad, if you're watching, you're going to get a call for raising me in a football, baseball family and not briefing me on basketball, for thanks for that. But I think that what was especially exciting about the team this year was the fact that they were able to pull in a lot of student support that they hadn't previously seen. I've known people who've been very involved in the nation, who've been really frustrated that they couldn't really excite the student body to come out to the games, and it would, you know, the BJC would just kind of be empty. And I think this year you really saw an improvement in attendance at the games, and I think that it not only helped the morale of the team, but it helped the morale of the student body. You know, people go to football depression when the season's over, and this really gave them something to rally around. So I hope that we can use that energy, and if it's a way to connect the student body and get them out to Penn State events, I say that's great. Thank you, basketball. Hopefully we're in next year.
All right.
Well, I honestly didn't expect that question to take as long as it did, but all very good answers. At this time, we're actually going to move into a couple of really quick-fire answers. It's for each individual candidate. I don't expect anybody to spend more than 10 seconds on these questions. We're just going to go down the line and then back, for each question. So, starting with Kieran's, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
Pink.
Red.
I'm told white's not a color, but it's white.
Okay, now starting with Smith, favorite movie?
Jeez.
Batman.
Well, the Devil of David Johnson is a documentary no one's ever heard of.
Pirates of the Caribbean, I heart Johnny Depp.
Caddyshack.
10 things I knew about you.
Favorite fast food? Brand? Starting with Kieran.
Wendy's.
Subway.
All right. Dream car? Starting with Smith.
Working.
I'm going to go with any Audi with a convertible top.
Going along that, Saab convertible.
A Aston Martin convertible.
I'll support America, new General Motors.
Favorite movie star? Starting with Kieran.
Kate Hudson.
Ooh, Rachel McAdams.
Johnny Depp.
Guy Pearce.
Favorite politician? Starting with Smith.
Smith Miller.
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Ronald Reagan.
JFK.
Abraham
And the last quick fire question. What is the one thing that everyone should do on April 1st?
But for true representation in Borsig Passaic.
Vote Miller Smith, your next UPUA president and vice president.
Ditto.
Okay, and at this time, we are going to move into closing remarks. If each ticket would like to take a minute, starting with Borsick and Pasega.
Again, thank you everyone for coming out this evening. As you see, this is just the beginning. We're starting exactly what Catherine and I want to do, is creating a dialogue, and for you guys to start speaking with us about what are the issues, what are the concerns, and what's needed at this university. We thank you for beginning this campaign season. There's a lot to still go on. We hope you are with us every step of the way, and we hope that we can truly enact some serious change on the campus that's necessary to better every Penn State student body's life and all future Penn State student generations. Thank you.
Okay, Miller and Smith.
We first want to thank everyone who came out tonight, and I would encourage you all to bring a lot of people, bring a lot of friends to the next debate, because it's really important that students see us all face to face and make a very educated decision when they do vote. So I would encourage that. I really hope that you will keep up to date with our campaign. Check out our platform, which is titled The Call to Action. We have it in a 24-page version or a 500-word version, so I'll leave that up to you which one you choose to read. We'd like to thank the other candidates for having such a, what we consider a great debate. We're really looking forward to the campaign season. We've been having a really great time. It's very fulfilling for us so far, and I'm going to let Matt finish up the time.
No, thanks again. I really enjoyed myself, and hopefully you'll vote for Miller and Smith on April 1st.
All right, and Kieran Gupta.
Repeat the question.
Closing comments.
Thank you.
Today we had a lot of back and forth between a lot of people who really care about the student body. One of the things though that makes the difference is that Hillary and I are clearly the most experienced ticket. For me, you can look back to my work for the past 3 years. It's the third time I've ran for UPUA president. Won last year and hope to win again. But really, this bid for presidency is not about Gavin Kieran, it's not about Hillary Gupta. It's about the idea that we're campaigning on. That's the restoration of the student body. Through our platform, through our proven experience, through our ideals, through who we are as people, we are clearly the best choice. I want you all to do me a big favor. Check out www.gavinkierans.com and check out what the experience is like. Vote Gavin Kierans, Hillary Gupta on April 1st. Thank you.
Let's give once again a round of applause and thanks to all of our candidates here. And just a couple of reminders before all of you leave. On March 27th, out in the Hub lobby, there will be a Meet the Candidates session where candidates will be standing out there to basically greet everybody. On March 30th, we will have the second presidential debate, and on April 1st is Election Day. For more information, please go to vote.psu.edu. And this concludes tonight's debate. Thank you.